2 a.m. net will start in approximately 5 minutes. KC9UDX net control. Good evening. This is Kilo Charlie 9er Uniform Delta X-Ray. My name is Matt and I welcome you to the 2 a.m. net. The purpose of this net is to promote the use of amplitude modulation and also to establish this part of this band as a place for AM activity in this area. Everyone is invited to listen. Licensed amateurs who can do so legally are encouraged to check in. We listen in the AM mode and transmit in the AM mode where possible. If you cannot transmit in AM, we encourage you to listen in AM and transmit in FM. If you are transmitting in FM, please adjust your transmit frequency a couple kCs above or below from our receive frequency. This facilitates the use of slope detection, that is, demodulating your FM signal with our AM receivers. If you're watching on the live stream on YouTube, please subscribe, like the video if you don't mind. It helps promote things. And feel free to share the video. That helps too. When checking, announce your call sign in standard phonetics. Again, this is KC9UDX. My name is Matt, and I will now begin accepting check-ins. Any stations wishing to check in, please come now.
Good evening, Matt. W9JCC.
Recognizing Frank, W9JCC, ever faithful check-in. Do we have anybody else? Come now, please. All right, hearing none so far, but keep your ears open, Frank. We've got a little bit more interest this month, I think. I got an email from a guy in Antioch named Jay who may try to check in here. Antioch, Illinois, that is. So it's certainly doable, I think, but probably kind of a stretch. So we'll have to listen carefully. Otherwise, not too much is new this month as usual. Of course, it's going to get real hot this week. I've got a little bit different setup here this month for YouTube. I fabricated I don't know what you call this thing. It's like a tripod, only it hangs from the ceiling. For mounting my camera, which is actually a phablet. It's half phone and half tablet. I guess I got every direction or degree of freedom for rotation for this thing except for one, and so if you're looking at it, you can see that things are a little bit skewed. That's the one direction I didn't allow for movement on this thing. I guess I may have to remanufacture it. But I think I have some work to do anyway, because it turns out there's no real good way to mount this thing. I was hoping to get a little bit better view and maybe make it so I could turn it around excuse me, and point it in my direction when I'm talking. And unfortunately, the way things are set up in this room, it just doesn't quite work. Anywhere I could put this thing didn't really work well. This was the best I could do. So I'll see if you have anything interesting to talk about. I probably have a little bit more here, but I can't think of anything right now. So Frank, it's your turn. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt. KC9UDX and net control, W9JCC. I dragged my feet a little bit there. I didn't hear anybody, but I don't have a great antenna. It's up high enough, but it's just a small vertical up there. And fine on the station from Antioch, Illinois, that might jump in there if he could hear us. And yeah, fine on the tripod. I don't have you on the YouTube yet. I think I got two other stations on on the spectrum out there on the TV or on the monitor, and gonna try and keep track of the Brewers score. They were up 2-0 when I came down, but should be a tough game for them. Yeah, I did a little AM work on 40 meters. I think it was yesterday. I checked into the noontime forum. That's on high end of a 40 meter phone band, and they come on every weekday at 1700 UTC. I used to check in a little more often, but it's gotten so that most of the time you can only hear them on Tiny Chat, kind of like what you're doing there on on YouTube there, Matt. And but yesterday I could hear most of the guys pretty good over the air, so conditions weren't too bad. So not a whole lot new here. We've been we planted our garden and it's doing really well so far, except we lost one pepper plant due to some animal getting in there. A couple of leaves on the cucumbers got bit. And Winnie's fit to be tied. She lost about a dozen marigolds out there. Every time she plants them, something gets out there and picks them out of there at night, evidently. Anyway, back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And sorry to hear about your plants. I think my wife and children have been very successful. I guess I don't know enough about that to be sure. Although we do have a cat. One of our neighbors lets their cat roam wild, I guess, and the cat has been watering things, which probably isn't a good thing, so we'll see how it goes. I'm not exactly sure what they're all growing out there. I think my son has got lima bean plants or something, and I think those are going pretty good, but I'm not certain. I guess I don't get enough time to really get too involved with that stuff, unfortunately. Speaking of which, it's another rough week at work here, and I'm pretty wound up. I woke up with about 2 hours of sleep today. Couldn't go back to sleep, and so hopefully I can talk sensible here the whole time. Like I said, I'm just kind of wound up, so we'll see. And as far as 40 meters, I don't think I've ever done AM on 40 meters. I think the only HF band I've done AM on is 10 meters. Now, I may be wrong about that. I'd have to look back in the log. I've got a Radio Shack 10 meter rig. HTX 10, I think, is the model number on it. It's been so long since I've actually used it, I forget these things. But that does AM, and I've used that quite a bit. And I think I've done 10 meters AM with my Drake TR3, which is not really AM. It's dual sideband reduced carrier. And I may have done a couple other bands on there too, but I'm not certain. It's been a long time since I've done any of that stuff. I just don't get time to do HF anymore. I wish I did. I fixed my antenna, what was it, last week, I think. I actually had time to go out and put a new SO2 antenna. I don't have a balun. I don't think I have. I haven't figured out a practical way to have a balun, or I probably would. But anyway, I've just got that connector there, and the old one came apart. And I put a new one on there, and I've made a better strain relief, so hopefully that works better. And I spent about a half hour remapping my antenna tuning last week, and I haven't done any transmission and very little receiving otherwise. Maybe in the summer I will have more time if things slow down at work. That'll put a crimp on my budget, but it wouldn't be such a bad thing for getting things done and taking time for other things. We're at the bottom of the list, of course. Let's see if we have any further check-ins for the 2 a.m. net come now.
Matt, you had KC9YH in there in the last go.
Aha, that's the guy we're looking for. KC9AYHJ. Welcome to you to the net. Hopefully I can hear you. I guess Frank can. So KC9AYH from KC9UDX, go ahead and take a turn. Talk about anything you like.
I don't hear him, Matt. Okay, do you want to make a transmission there, Matt?
I don't hear anything. I see a little bit on the receive meter. Let's try again. JKC9AYH, if you're there, go ahead and make a transmission.
Go ahead and make one, Jay. Go ahead. Okay, very good, Jay. 100% copy. You're not moving the estimator at all, but you're coming through just fine. So, Matt, Jay is going to try to find you there on YouTube so he can hear you. He doesn't hear you, and evidently you're not hearing him either. So, back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. Yeah, you must be in just the right spot. I can tell he's there, but I can't make out anything he's saying. Once in a while, the receive meter moves, and for most of the time, I can hear his voice out there in the great distance, but not well enough to make out a single syllable. I can hear the signal going up and down a little bit, though. Propagation must be varying. But I've got him in the log, and yeah, hopefully he can find the video here on YouTube. I think I can tell when somebody is watching, and I don't think anybody is watching, but we will see. And at this point, I'll see if we have any more check-ins. Anybody check in? Here's your chance. Come now, please.
Whiskey Bravo 9. Bravo, Whiskey Papa.
Recognizing Dave, WB9BWP. Is there anybody else? Hearing none, Dave, I will turn it over to you. Welcome to the net, WB9BWP from KC9UDX.
Okay. I just got everything fired up here about 2 minutes ago, I think. I did hear the other station in there. I didn't get his call, though. And I think I heard Frank say something to him. So I guess there's at least, 4 of us here tonight, hey? I don't know, nothing special, I guess. I was doing some outside work earlier today, and I was doing some of that on Saturday, and it slowed me down because of my back issues that I had worked on a couple of years ago. But other than that, I guess everything's functional. So for right now, I guess I'll just throw it back to that. This is WB9BWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. You're a solid 5 on the receive meter, 50%. Audio is a little bit quieter than I remember from previous months. Not sure if that's propagation or you're just talking quieter. I know sometimes propagation seems to have that effect too. Looking at the, I guess you call it a viewfinder here, what I'm watching with the YouTube stream, and I can see the LED in the backlight for my receive meter flickering, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's driven resistively from a linear power supply. And I'm pretty sure that power supply is in good working order, or you guys would be hearing 60 hertz hum. So I guess if you're hearing any hum, definitely let me know and I'll have to tear into that thing. Otherwise, I'm not sure where that flicker would be coming from. And again, we're at the bottom of the list. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none, we'll go back to the top of the list. Frank, I will send it to you, and if you want to go straight to Jay, because I cannot hear him. W9JCC from KC9UDX.
Okay, Matt, very good. And good evening to Dave there as well. Copy Dave, pretty good here too. And sorry you had a rough weekend there, Matt. Our week was not too tough here since we're not, I think you're working third shift, so we don't have that to deal with. And as far as my AM activity on 40 meters, I use my old Johnson Rangers, 50 watts output, and the 75A4 receiver. And it's not the most, it could use a little more power, but it seems to work pretty well. And I won't keep it too long. I hope Jay found you on YouTube, and if not, let me, when you come back, let me know if you found Matt, and if not, I'll get Matt to give me the exact coordinates to find him on YouTube. So over to you there, Jay. KC9AYH W9JCC. Okay, Jay, very good. And first of all, the name is Frank. Frank is the name. And as far as vintage gear, I think Matt's the only one using vintage. I'm using a TS2000, 25 watts, and I think Dave is using the same thing there, WB9BWP. And Matt, Jay has found you on YouTube, so he should be able to hear you. So back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank. And once again, Jay, I can just barely make out your voice, and I can see the receive meter move just a hair. But other than that, can't make out much of anything, unfortunately. Some point here in the future, I need to put up a beam for these situations. There should be no reason I shouldn't be able to get a better signal with a beam. Of course, I'd have to probably switch it in and out for different situations here. I've got a pretty good antenna, but line of sight must just be working against us here. I'm not in the best location. There's lots of hills and trees around here, of course. And I guess I got to get ambitious here. At some point, I've got to figure out a good way to reduce the output on this radio so that I can run the amplifier again. I think you'd be able to hear me if I ran the amplifier. I can reduce the output safely to run the amp as it is, but I'd like to do it a lot better. Detuning the output on the radio it works, but it's really not the best solution. So I'd actually like to go in and reduce the output of the transmitter, and at some point here I'll get around to doing that. But at the rate things are going, it could be months and maybe even years. Hopefully not, but we will see. And next we have Dave, WB9BWP from KC9UDX. It's your turn, Dave.
Okay. Let's see. Well, tonight so far, a couple of times in the past I've had nights with really bad noise. And for, I think, the last 3 or 4 months, I've had, like, moderate noise. Tonight, I pretty much have no noise. So, everybody's real quiet. The band is quiet even when people aren't talking. So, the last couple of months when I'd have, like, the medium noise, it was kind of weird in that there would be this noise, pretty good noise floor there that I would hear. Then as soon as somebody would key up, that would drop way down. Tonight it's just this quiet background. It's almost scary. I've had this a couple times in the past, but not recently. So I don't know what the difference is. It is just the air. We certainly had enough different kinds of weather that to cause a lot of changes there. One thing I have noticed, I've got the logging program running with, it's got a spotting section on there, and for the last week or so, and tonight, they're just really pounding out. There's been a ton of 6-meter T8 activity. Stations from all over the country, and tonight I haven't seen any DX yet, but previous nights I've seen even a lot of DX. And it's just rapid fire here as they're showing up on the screen. Unfortunately, I'm not set up to transmit on any of those modes yet. I did fire up that program to try to do some receiving the other day, and it's like way different than I use FLDigi for other digital modes. That's pretty easy to get going, and the FT8 stuff is, I got to look at it a lot closer because I couldn't get anything to happen. Let's see. Also, yesterday I went and picked up a heat kit, automatic or semi-automatic antenna tuner that's never been used. It was built. It's like mid-'80s vintage. It was built. There was a problem with it. The owner sent it back to heat kit. They fixed it. He got it back, never used it, and he passed it on to a family member who had never used it. And so I bought it from him, pending whether or not I check it out and it works and all that. But that requires some reading too, as it's kind of, on the surface it looks kind of strange, but I think it's not if you get past some of the description and nomenclature. It's motorized capacitors and inductor, not relays with a bunch of fixed items in there. But they want you to go and like preset some upper and lower band segments for each band on the inductor, and then either you can manually tune from there on each band, or if you've got a radio that will give it a signal. I think it'll do things by itself, but I haven't read far enough in that yet. And it's big too. I've got my stuff somewhat rack mounted, and the cabinets that I have are about 16 inches deep, and that thing is like 21 inches deep. So I got to figure out a location for it too. So I guess that's big radio stuff in here on that. So anyway, with that I'll send it back to net, and I can hear everybody, which is also kind of scary. This is WB9 DWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. I have not noticed too much noise on this frequency, but I did notice when I was tuning around earlier, there's quite a bit of noise other places on the band. I'm not sure why or what that is. I suppose it could be something in my house. Maybe I've got a new wall wart that I don't even realize is putting out noise. I'll have to investigate that. Wienergees was here today, poking around out by the pole. I don't think they did anything that would affect anything here, though. I'm pretty sure of that. I think all they're doing is putting up the plastic cover that they put over the ground conductor that runs down the pole. Actually, I took a video while they were out there working. I was busy doing other stuff inside, so I didn't get a chance to go outside, and I don't think they would have appreciated me setting up a tripod by them. Otherwise, I probably could have asked them what they were doing. But I did put the video on YouTube. It's hard to see through the window screen, but it's there nonetheless. And that antenna tuner, that certainly sounds interesting. I've always been interested in the automatic kind that have tuning capacitors and inductors. I've always liked that design a lot better than the fixed inductors and the relays that switch everything. And it's been one of my long-term goals to build an automatic tuner like that. That's one of those things that's way, way off in the background. I will probably not in 10 years get around to doing that, but something I may do before that though is at least have a remote tuner. I guess a remote tuner instead of a balun would be, or with a balun would be a lot better than having a balun out by the antenna. You know, something that I could adjust capacitor and inductor from controls in here. I don't think that's out of my reach, but there again, I don't know when I'll ever get time. Things are piling up here to go on the bench, and I still have to fix my bench. I actually got to build a bench. And actually last week, I didn't work any overtime last week, and it was kind of like a vacation. I actually started to feel like I could start to get things done. Almost like I had a normal life, and then now this week I'm back to working overtime again, so all of that stuff is not happening anymore. And with that, we are at the bottom of the list. Let's see if we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net. Come now, please. Hearing none, we'll go back to the top of the list. Frank, W9JCC, it's your turn, and then give it to Jay, please. Go ahead, Frank, KC9UDX here.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And signal report wise, I looked at the S-meter this last time for everybody, and Matt, you're your usual 40 over 9. Jay, KC9AYH, he's 5 and 0, but perfectly readable. Just and you asked about the audio there, Jay. Your audio is doing the job for you. Your audio is coming through there just great. It sounds real good. And Dave, you're between a 1 and a 3, so he's S3 most of the time. So no problem there. And let's see, as far as that antenna tuner sounds kind of interesting. I don't recall ever seeing that by Heathkit. I wonder, he may say again about which time frame that was put out on the market. I'm real familiar with the stuff that went out in the mid-60s to 1970. I've got the whole SB series, the 301, 401, the monitor scope and station console and that stuff. And it's still being used. So we're getting our mileage out of that. And I've got, the only antenna tuner I've got here is the Johnson Matchbox, the 250 watt variety, but that pretty well covers the gamut as far as power. They were designed for 250 watts AM, which is that's a kilowatt peak to peak, peak envelope power for AM, Class B modulation. And I've run 1500 lux legal limit, a sideband through there, not any problem at all. It works just fine. And I don't use it very often. I had it up. I used it for a while when I had a loop antenna up there, and that was for about 3 years, and then I took it down. But back in the early days, I used to feed my 40-meter dipole with 72 ohm kW twin lead, which is pretty hard stuff to find anymore, but the wire spacing on that to get to 72 ohms is it's got to be down to like less than a 64th of an inch. I mean, it's really, if they didn't have that thick plastic in between there, they'd be touching it. It's pretty neat stuff, but I haven't seen that stuff for sale in a long time. Anyway, Jay, enough rambling here. Over you there, and you can turn it back to Matt. And KC9AYH, W9JCC. Go ahead, Jay. Okay, very good there, Jay. And Matt, Jay hears you just fine over the YouTube there. So back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, thank you, Frank, and thank you, Jay. Jay, I do have to apologize that I can't quite hear you here. You got the wheels spinning in my head, though. A long time ago, I bought speaking of Heathkit, I bought a Heathkit Q multiplier that should be compatible with this Gonset Communicator 4. And for a long time, I've been meaning to install that. I think it would really help in situations like this. But there again, I'm kind of afraid if I tear into it, I won't get it done by next month. And I don't recall if I even own another another 2-meter AM transmitter that's working as a backup anymore. I think I've gotten so used to this one working so well. I did have several of them here at one time, but I don't think I have. I might still have one. I'd have to dig it out, but there, like I say, I guess I don't want to tear into it, but I don't know. Maybe something will happen and I'll get time. So a Q multiplier would probably help with my receive, and as long as I'm in there, I could attenuate the transmitter somehow and be able to use the amplifier safely, and that would help for transmitting. I got a measly 7 watts here for transmit power. I think I've got it written down here. I've got 6.376 decibels of antenna system gain. I've got a Hustler G6 144 that's up just about 30 feet off of the ground from the base. So that's about as good as I can get, and it does work well, but not well enough for every situation, of course. And Frank, I don't know that I've ever even heard of 72 ohm twin lead. Maybe I have and I've forgotten. It'd be interesting to see that. It's probably looks almost like lamp cord, which I've heard of guys using for feed line. I have not done that myself. But that sounds interesting, and I can understand it would be hard to find. Next we have Dave, WB9BWP. Dave, it's your turn again from KC9UDX.
Okay. I know you had that's experimenting with 2 pieces of coax parallel for feed line. Actually, I think it was from satellite TV installation, and it's molded that way. 2 parallel pieces of RG6, I think. And I forget if he was trying with a loop or just a straight wire. I don't remember. And Frank, the Heathkit, it's one of the Brown series, which is, I think, the last stuff they did, probably in the 80s. The model number is SA2500 is the tuner. And yeah, I remember the SB stuff. In fact, I'm looking right now at a VHF watt meter that's telling me how well I'm working here. The HM 2102 is the VHF version of their HF1, which I forget the model number of that. I remember seeing the 300, 400 stuff in the store there. Whenever I'd go over there, so I'd go, yeah, someday I want to have something like that. Of course, by the time I had that money, they weren't there, so. MRAC had a SB104 for a while. Was donated to us by a guy, I can't remember who it was. I don't think he was a member either. He found us one day and said, I've got this radio, it's not working, you guys want it? And one of the guys took it and got it working again. It wasn't any big deal. I think it was like replace one part or something like that. It wasn't hard at all. And we used it for a number of years at field day and demos and whatnot. We sold all our radios a couple of years ago. Put the money money into antenna type stuff since the days of people not being able to bring out their radios because they were too big and heavy and stuff are long gone. We haven't had any problem coming up with radios for field day, so instead we took the money and put it to other stuff. We had a Kenwood 430 also. We sold that off too. And that came from Silent Key of a member. Forget what we paid and what we sold it for, but we did okay, and the radio was in great shape. The EQ was in great shape too. And then the guy that bought it, a year or two later at one of our auctions, we actually had donated, I don't know the model number, but it was the matching amplifier that they only did one, it's the only one like it, to match the 104 radio. It was a single tube thing with a genuine beryllium copper heat sink on the tube. There's no fan in the thing. And I remember the manual, with the warnings in there about if you handle the heat sink, make sure it's not chipped or cracked or cut, and don't make any dust, and don't breathe too hard while you're handling it. Why they did that, I always often wonder about. But anyway, I don't think he's ever fired up that amplifier though. Let's see, since everybody's mentioning antennas and things, I've got a Cushcraft, I don't remember the model number. They haven't made it for years. It's a 17-foot long, 2-meter 440 job. Fell apart once, coax connector fell off once. I just told somebody a couple of weeks ago that if that has to come down for some reason, it's probably going to totally fall apart. It's been up there for quite some time, and the base of it is about 23, 25 feet maybe. Sitting a couple of feet above M-squared loops for 2 and 440. They're off on fiberglass cross arm for sideband work. I didn't put a lot of effort into it. I had a couple of different times. Last weekend was the ARL VHF contest. I fired up the radio, tuned the cross, 6.2, 440. Heard not a thing. I thought, wow, that's the activity during a contest weekend. Anyway, I guess that's good enough for now. So I'll try back to that. This is WB9BWT.
All right, thank you, Dave. I wonder what modes they primarily run during that contest. I would assume sideband, but maybe not. I think I've only got one radio here that I can do VHF sideband with. I'm not even sure what it is or where it is at the moment. So I guess that wouldn't do me a lot of good. We got AM covered on 6 meters and 2 meters, and FM on 2 meters, 70 centimeter, and 220, of course, and also 900 and 1200. That's I would assume during a contest FM is not real useful, but I guess I don't know. I just never get a chance to play with any of that stuff anymore, which is a real shame. That's another thing I've got to do. One of these days I've got to realign the receiver in my Gonset Communicator 3 for 6 meters. That's something I've been meaning to do for years. I guess it really wouldn't even be necessary if only I could get the time to reconfigure the power plug so I can plug it in here in the station and get it back running again. It's configured for a battery right now. I have to rewire it for AC power, and if I could do that, we could simulcast this net on 2 meters and 6 meters, and then I know we'd get a couple more participants, guys who don't have 2 meter AM capability that have 6 meter AM capability. And beryllium copper, I used to have to machine beryllium copper, and I always kind of wondered about that. We of course machine it under oil, but while you're cutting it, the oil is smoking and steaming, and you're breathing that in. So I don't know. I don't know how good or bad that really is. I guess I never really read up on beryllium copper. We were always told to be careful with it, but what the what it really does to you, and whether or not I would even know if I had any problems with it, I guess I wouldn't know. And as far as using parallel coax, I've read a bit about using that for feedline, and that makes a lot of sense. Especially, of course, if, like you say, you can get some of that stuff that's molded that way for free. I know a lot of guys seem to find it that way. I don't have any sources for that. But if I ever did, I think I would put that to use. And anyway, that brings us to the bottom of the list. Do we have any more check-ins for the 2 a.m. net? Here's your last opportunity. Anybody that wants to check in, come now, please. All right, hearing none. We'll go back to the top of the list for the 7-3 round. Frank, W9JCC, it's your turn again.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And you mentioned hams using lamp cord for feed line, and that was very common back in the 50s. When that 72 ohm was probably a little more expensive to buy that 72 ohm twin lead, but I knew more than one ham that used whip cord there, or AC line cord, and it did work pretty well. And fine, Dave, on that Brown series, I just vaguely remember that series. I wasn't following things too much with Heathcliff about that in the 1980s there. But the SA 2500, I think you said it was, a tuner. Don't remember the tuner, but I do remember some of the other gear that had. It didn't seem like it hung around very long. And yeah, my SB series, I've been using that, well, I used it up until 1992 when I got my Yaesu FT1000. And then I put it in on the shelf for about 10 or 15 years. And finally talked the XYL into give me a small space up in the patio. So I built a wooden rack, and we put the receiver, the transmitter, and a linear I was using at that time, all in that wooden rack, and that's I'm using that to this day now. I use it every Sunday morning that the weather is reasonable out there. Where, if I don't have to have heat or anything, well, there is no heat out there, so when the weather is okay and I can stand it, I'll operate a schedule that I do on Sunday mornings right from the patio with that old gear, and it seems to work just fine. What I'm using for the 2-meter antenna here is a dual bander by Hustler. It's the Hustler 270. It's about 7 feet in length. I think it's good for about 100 watts. And I've had it up a couple of years now. I really hated to take down the other one I had. The other one was a Chris-Craft Ringo Ranger, I believe. It was about 9 feet long. 2 meters only. It would handle 1,000 watts if you had that kind of power. And the thing worked flawlessly for decades, and had a very flat SWR with about 1.1 or so run, and just flat across. There's no sharp peak in the thing at all. And as far as contests, yeah, you can usually tell when the bands are open, when the contests are on. And it's kind of interesting that during the week you probably don't hear a lot of stations. Sometimes, but when the contest is on, you usually pick up quite a few. Okay, I must have left up on the switch here, or all of a sudden I hear the background noise coming in. But anyway, I guess that's enough for this time, and I think we'll pass along our 73s. And Jay, it's good hearing you for the first time, so don't be a stranger there. Good to hear you. You got good sounding audio, and so you're making it up here in pretty decent shape. So 73s, and I'll turn it back to, let's see, I guess it goes down there to you, Jay, since Matt's not hearing you there. So go ahead and make one. KC9 AYH 73 W9JCC. Okay, very good, Jay. And Matt, Jay said he'd contact you via email regarding some other things you were wanting to talk about there. So back to net control, W9JCC.
All right, very good. Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Jay. And Jay, of course, thanks for being here. And like Frank said, don't be a stranger. If you can make it here whenever you can. We're here the second Tuesday of every month, 8 p.m. We'd appreciate you being here. I'll do what I can to improve my setup here, so maybe at some point I can hear you and you can hear me. But until then, the other guys can hear you fine. So. And that time I was able to make out your call sign at the very beginning of your transmission. Maybe it's just the way my ears work. I can hear that because I think that's what I'm going to hear. But I could hear you say Frank's call sign and your call sign. So and I think you do have good audio, even though I can't make out most of what you're saying. It does sound like your audio is good, and definitely the amplitude is up there where it belongs. Anyway. I'm talking too long here. Not that it matters. We got about 8 minutes left here. So Dave, if you've got a lot to say, that's fine. Go ahead. Don't be short if you don't want. So we're not running terrible on time, but we are at the end here. So Dave, WB9BWP from KC9UDX 7-3 round.
Okay. Oh, everybody always expects me to fill in am I that bad that I babble that much? I guess I've always been able to fill in the open space. I know my wife often tells me, just stop talking. That's why she lets me come down and play with the radio, because it keeps me out of the way, out of her way. I'll just throw out a small commercial there for Jay, so he can hear us here. He might be able to hear a repeater on Friday night. We have net at 9 o'clock, Milwaukee Radio Amateurs Club, 14539, minus 600, 127.3 PL. And generally runs for at least an hour, 9 o'clock Friday evenings. The antenna's 750 feet in the air, and set by 2.5-inch hard line, 2.25-inch hard line, with zero loss from northeast portion of city of Milwaukee, right alongside Milwaukee River. you got a good set. Technically, we cover to the same line, but home stations actually go well beyond that. But we don't say that out loud to keep the repeater coordinators all happy. Anyways, I've babbled plenty here this evening, so I'll give Matt a little extra time there. So 73 to all. Good actually hearing everyone tonight. That was good. And I like that one. There's no noise here. Like I say, I can't equate that to any particular piece of equipment in the house here or outside or whatever. Oh, I guess I will throw in one story, Matt, when you were talking about the electric company guys out there doing work. We've got a major line that runs across the back of the property. That in fact they beefed up they added wires to it and upped the voltage about a year ago. So one day, a couple of years ago, I was outside actually doing some antenna work, and I'm working along, and it's pretty quiet outside, and there's not even much traffic, can't hear anything. But suddenly I start hearing a voice, and I can't repeat everything that he was saying, not on the radio anyway. And I'm looking around, it's like, where's his voice coming from? I don't see anybody. It's the middle of a weekday. I know that most of the neighbors are working. I don't see anybody outside. Well, it turns out there was a Wienergy's guy. He was climbing each pole. I don't know what he was doing, what he was looking for. I don't even know where his truck was. But eventually I did see him. He'd move his ladder down. He'd climb up the next pole. And he just wasn't happy with whatever he was doing or however it was working out. And he wasn't quiet about it. And you could hear his voice everywhere. I thought that was interesting. Anyhow, with that, 73 once again to everybody out there. And even if there's some people that were afraid to check in. So I'll send it back to Net Control. This is WB9BWP.
All right, thank you, Dave. That is a good story about the lineman there. I think I mentioned this last month or the month before. I never did get around to talking to my neighbor about this, but he apparently called Wienergy's and said that he was having voltage problems, whatever that means, inside his house, and for reasons I don't quite understand. Wienergy's, you would think if they would come out with a complaint like that, the first thing they would do is open up the meter enclosure and do some measuring at the meter, maybe even pull the meter and measure it, and inspect the terminals inside of the meter housing. But they did not. They actually went up in a bucket and put a voltmeter right on the right on the high voltage wires, which I thought was kind of interesting. And they were yelling down the voltage to the guys on the ground. They had the whole crew out there, and I never. Like I say, I never talked to him to figure out what was going on there. The whole thing didn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know why Wienergy's would do that. The high voltage doesn't change much, and if it did, my neighbor wouldn't be the only one complaining. The transformer that feeds both my house and my neighbor's house is on the pole in front of my house, and they never even went up there. You would think they would measure at the transformer. Rather than the high voltage side. I don't know. It didn't make any sense. The power lines here are the original three-phase lines that were put up for the farmers out here way back whenever they first electrified this area. And I guess that's still sufficient. Nobody out here really has any problems that I'm aware of. I looked into getting three-phase power out into my shop building here at one time, and it was cost prohibitive, unfortunately. But these days it doesn't really matter because three-phase inverters from single-phase are not cost prohibitive. So I guess I'm glad I didn't mortgage anything on that one. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the net. In fact, I'll read from the script. This concludes the 2 a.m. net. Feel free to reg to on this frequency after my transmission. We will meet again on the 17th of July. Until then, this is KC9UDX 73, and good night.